The cold wind sliced through the Arctic air as the research team trudged across the ice sheet, their boots crunching over snow-packed terrain. They weren't here for the cold, they were here for discovery. What looked like a simple fissure in the ice had turned into something far more remarkable. Before them yawned a massive, glittering opening in the iceberg, like the open mouth of some ancient, frozen beast. The inside shimmered with walls so clear and crystalline it felt like stepping into a cathedral of glass. Their breath visible in clouds, flashlights bobbing in the dimness, the team stepped inside. They hadn't spoken much during the descent, but now, standing on the edge of something so unexpected, they gasped as one. In the center of the cavern was a lake, perfectly still, perfectly round, deep and dark and silent. It shouldn't have been there. Not this deep in the ice, not this warm. Steve, the team leader, instinctively stepped forward, one hand raised. "Stay back, don't touch the water." But someone wasn't listening. Richard bold, impulsive, curious. Richard had already wandered to the edge of the lake, gazing into the black surface like it held answers to unasked questions. "You guys really need to see this," he whispered, his voice oddly calm. Before anyone could stop him, he reached out and dipped his fingers into the lake. "Richard, no!" Steve shouted. But it was too late. Richard let out a strangled cry. His entire body convulsed, limbs flailing violently. His scream echoed off the walls, a terrifying mix of pain and shock. Then, as suddenly as it started, he collapsed. His body went limp, his face pale. The others rushed to his side, yelling his name, checking his pulse. Then came the sound. Low at first, like a distant growl or grinding metal butt growing steadily louder, the ice around them seemed to vibrate with it. It wasn't natural, and it was coming from deeper in the cave. Steve knelt by Richard's side. "Don't touch the water," he ordered again, voice trembling. He checked for signs of life breath, pulse, anything. Richard was alive, but unresponsive, unconscious. They needed help. "Monica, go!" Steve shouted. "Call it in! Tell them it's an emergency!" Monica took off, flashlight slashing through the dark like a blade. The rest of the team carefully lifted Richard and began carrying him toward the entrance. Every step felt like an eternity. Outside, the air bit harder. They laid Richard gently onto the snow. His breathing was shallow, skin clammy. Then, in the distance, a sound like thunder chopper blades. Help had arrived. A rescue crew landed within minutes, bundled Richard into the helicopter, and lifted off with Monica by his side. But Steve couldn't leave. Not yet. There was something in that cave, something not just strange, but possibly dangerous, maybe even otherworldly. "We need to go back," Steve said, his voice grim. "We need to find out what's really in there." The remaining team agreed. They descended again, this time moving faster. The path was still fresh in their minds. When they reached the lake, the haunting noise returned louder, more insistent. It was coming from behind the lake now, somewhere deeper. "There," someone pointed. "A tunnel, barely noticeable before." Steve peered into the darkness. "That's where it's coming from." He didn't wait. Strapping on his gear, he began the climb along the icy ledge above the water, determined to cross to the other side without touching the lake. Monica and Richard, refusing to let him go alone, joined in. One misstep could send them plunging into whatever had just hurt Richard. But they made it. Breathing heavily, they stood on solid ground again, the lake behind them and the unknown ahead. The tunnel narrowed and curved. Their flashlights flickered against slick blue walls. Then light, a soft flicker, orange. They turned a corner and froze. There, in a small alcove, sat a candle, still burning. Someone had been here, recently. Steve knelt and examined it. "Still warm," he muttered. Monica looked around, her breath visible in the cold air. "We're not alone." Ahead, multiple tunnels branched off like veins. The cave was far larger than any of them had imagined. Steve made a call. "We split up, 2 teams." Monica hesitated. "Are you sure?" Richard nodded. "We'll be fine." Steve and Nicky took the left tunnel. The others moved right. It wasn't long before things turned worse. Steve and Nicky had barely made it 100 feet when the sound of footsteps echoed from behind. Not theirs, someone else's. "Quick, over here!" Steve whispered, pulling Nicky behind a large chunk of ice. They crouched, barely breathing, as the steps grew louder. A voice called out in the dark foreign, low, cautious, then silence, then footsteps closer, then fading. "That was close," Nicky whispered. Steve nodded. "Let's keep going." But they only got a few feet further before they were grabbed from behind. Bags over their heads, arms pinned, voices angry, harsh, commands barked in a language they didn't understand. They were dragged through twisting tunnels, deeper into the heart of the cave. Hours felt like days. When the bags were finally removed, they found themselves in a room dimly lit by a hanging lantern. Ice walls reflected their fear-stricken faces. At the doorway stood men and women in thick furs, holding weapons cobbled together from ice, bone, and metal. "Who are you?" one of them growled. Steve's voice shook. "We're scientists. Explorers. Why did you follow us?" "We didn't know anyone was here," Nikki said quickly. "We're not here to hurt anyone. We swear." The captors didn't believe them, and then the earth trembled. A rumble rolled through the ice like a giant exhaling. Even the cave dwellers froze, eyes wide. "Move!" the leader shouted. The group rushed out through another tunnel, dragging Steve and Nikki with them. Elsewhere in the cave, Monica and Richard were unaware of what had happened. They stumbled upon strange signs of life furniture, hand-carved tools, even a map carved directly into the ice wall. "Someone lives here," Richard said in awe. But before they could process it, they too were surrounded, captured, and dragged away. Eventually, the 4 team members were reunited in a small chamber. "Steve?" Richard whispered. "Thank God you're okay," Monica said. They embraced briefly, then fell into anxious silence. "What do they want with us?" Nikki whispered. "I don't know," Steve admitted, "but I don't think they're going to hurt us." Not yet. The tension in the icy chamber could be cut with a knife. Torches flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows over the rough-hewn ice. The explorers sat huddled in one corner, exchanging silent glances. Their captors whispered among themselves in a dialect that none of the outsiders could understand, though the body language said enough. Suspicion, uncertainty, fear. Then an older man stepped forward. His beard was frosted white, and his eyes, though wary, held a flicker of something else, wisdom perhaps, or weariness. "You are scientists?" he asked, his voice slow and heavily accented. Steve nodded. "Yes, we're here to study the cave, nothing more." The man considered this. "Most who come here do not return." A heavy silence followed. Monica, trembling but brave, spoke up. "We didn't know anyone lived here. We thought we were alone." "You are not," the man replied. He motioned for 2 others to lower their weapons. "This place is home. We came here long ago, when the world above turned on itself." "You mean you've lived here? For how long?" Nikki asked. The old man turned his head toward the distant rumble that still echoed faintly through the cave. "Decades, maybe more. Time is different down here." Richard leaned forward, incredulous. "But how? What about food, water, light?" The man gestured around them. "This cave provides. We farm mushrooms, catch fish from the underground lake, and we use the electric waters to power heat and light." "Electric waters?" Steve echoed, suddenly realizing. That's what shocked Richard. The lake. The man nodded. "Yes, that water is alive. The eels we protect carry enough voltage to kill a bear. It keeps us safe from outsiders." Steve looked to Richard, who was still pale but sitting upright. "That explains it." "But why hide?" Monica asked. "The world's changed." The man's face hardened. "Not enough. We found peace here, and we will not risk it for curiosity." The group listened in stunned silence. They had stumbled not just on a hidden cave, but an entire hidden civilization, a people who had built a life from ice and electricity, carving out existence in the most unforgiving of places. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted, the weapons lowered. Suspicion gave way to guarded conversation. One of the women brought bowls of steaming soup, thick, earthy, and surprisingly warm. The team accepted gratefully, eating in silence, each of them reeling from what they'd just discovered. Later, the old man sat beside Steve. "You were not meant to find this place," he said, "but now you have, and that leaves us with a choice." Steve met his gaze. "We won't tell anyone. We swear. No one would believe us anyway." The man studied him for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Very well, but you must prove you can be trusted." "How?" Monica asked, her voice steady now. "There is something stirring beneath us," the man said. "Something old and dangerous. We've heard it moving more often these days. That sound you heard. It was not us." Steve's blood ran cold. "Then what was it?" The man didn't answer, not directly. "There is a tunnel deeper than any we use. It was sealed long ago, but lately it has begun to open." Nikki frowned. "You want us to investigate it?" "You're already in our world. You might as well understand what truly lies beneath it." They had no real choice. Steve stood. "Then take us there." The descent into the lower tunnels was unlike anything they'd done before. The air grew thicker, colder. Each step was harder than the last. Frost hung from the ceilings like daggers, and strange symbols were etched into the ice. The guide said nothing, merely pointing the way. Eventually they reached a massive door frozen shut. "This is it," he said. "Beyond here we do not go." With great effort and heated tools they managed to unseal it. The door groaned as it opened, revealing a tunnel so black it seemed to absorb their flashlight beams. "What do you think's down there?" Richard whispered. Steve didn't answer. He just stepped forward. They moved slowly, the tunnel narrowing as they advanced. Then the floor dipped steeply. Slipping, sliding, stumbling, they found themselves in a vast hollow chamber unlike anything they'd seen. And in the center of it was a structure, massive, alien. It looked like it had been built, not carved into the ice, with strange metal beams, blinking lights, and a constant humming vibration. The temperature here was somehow warmer. The ice didn't melt, yet the cold didn't bite. This is technology, Nikki breathed. Not ours, Monica said. No way, this is human. Suddenly, a soft pulse of blue light illuminated the structure. Then another. Then another. It was waking up. Steve's flashlight flickered, then died. One by one, their electronics followed suit watches, flashlights, even their radios. Darkness surged around them like a wave. "What do we do?" Richard asked, panic in his voice. Then came the sound again, that low, bone-deep rumble. But now it wasn't just a sound, it was a presence. They could feel it, pressing against their skin, whispering at the edges of their minds. "We need to leave," Steve said firmly. But the structure had other ideas. The chamber trembled, and from its base a shape emerged. Tall, thin, shimmering with translucent skin and glowing veins. It wasn't human, and it was watching them. As the team stood in stunned silence, the strange figure slowly receded into the depths of the structure, leaving behind only the faint hum of unseen energy pulsing through the walls. No one spoke. The truth of what they'd discovered, an ancient, hidden civilization, and something far older, perhaps not even of this world, was too vast to fully grasp. When they finally emerged from the cave and stepped back into daylight, each of them knew their lives had changed forever. They had seen something no one else ever had. And though they agreed never to speak of it publicly, the memory would remain with them, etched into their minds like the ice walls of the cavern, a chilling reminder that beneath the surface of our world, mysteries still wait in the dark.